The space station was quiet, floating like a lonely shadow in the endless dark. Most of the travelers had already gone, leaving behind empty halls and silent rooms. The only sound was the soft hum of old machines, keeping the station alive. Ethan, a human trader, walked slowly through the deserted corridors. He had finished his business for the day and was searching for a place to rest. But then, he heard something strange. It was not the sound of machines, not the sound of footsteps. It was a weak voice, trembling like a whisper carried by the wind. "Please help me." Ethan stopped, his heart beating faster. He looked around, but the hallway was empty. Still, the voice came again, softer this time. "Please, someone." He followed the sound. Turning down a narrow passage, the light flickered overhead, casting long shadows on the walls. At the very end of the passage, he saw a figure sitting on the floor. She was small, thin, and wrapped in torn cloth. Her skin glowed faintly, like silver touched by moonlight. And her eyes, large, bright, and filled with tears, looked up at him. She was not human. Ethan froze. He had seen many aliens in his travels, but none like her. She looked fragile, as if even the air might break her. Her breathing was heavy, and her hands shook as she tried to lift herself. When she spoke, her voice cracked with pain. "You, human, please, help me." Ethan knelt down, keeping a safe distance. "What happened to you?" he asked carefully. The woman lowered her head, shame and fear in her eyes. "I am Lyra," she said. "I have nowhere to go, nowhere to hide." Her voice was desperate. Her body trembled as though she carried a heavy weight too big for her frame. Ethan noticed scars along her arms. Some were fresh, others old. Whoever she was, she had suffered greatly. She looked like a prisoner who had escaped from chains. He wanted to ask more, but before he could, she did something that made his blood run cold. The alien woman crawled forward and dropped to her knees before him. Her forehead touched the floor as if she was begging a king. "Please," she whispered. "I beg you. I need you to give me a child." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He thought he had heard wrong. A child? With him? This stranger? This alien? His mind spun with confusion. He stepped back, shaking his head. "What are you talking about? Why would you ask me that?" Lyra lifted her face, tears running down her cheeks. Her eyes glowed brighter now, filled with sorrow. "My people are dying," she said. "We are fading. We cannot survive much longer." Her words broke with sobs. "No man of my kind can give life anymore. Our blood is too weak." Her hand reached out, trembling, almost touching his boot. "Only a human can give us hope. Only a human can save us." Ethan's chest tightened. Her voice was not just desperate, it was broken. Every word carried centuries of suffering, but still the request was too much. He could not believe it. "Why me?" he asked, almost whispering. "There are others. Why me?" Lyra shook her head. Her silver hair fell across her face as she whispered. "They would not listen. They would not care. But you are different. I saw you share your food with the hungry child on the station. I saw kindness in you." Her voice shook. "You are the last chance I have." Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to speak, to tell her no, but the weight in her eyes held him still. This was not a trick. This was real pain, real fear. She looked at him not as a stranger, but as the only hope left. The silence grew heavy between them. The hum of the station felt louder, pressing into his ears. Ethan took a step back, unsure what to do. This was not what he had signed up for. He was just a trader, just a man trying to live quietly. But now, fate had put this fragile being in his path, and her request was more than he could imagine. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the sound of heavy boots echoed in the distance. Lyra's eyes widened with terror. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They are here. They found me." Ethan turned toward the sound. Shadows moved at the far end of the hallway. Voices, harsh and angry, carried through the air. They were searching for someone, and Ethan already knew who. Lyra grabbed his arm with sudden strength. Please, she begged, her glowing eyes locked onto his. Don't let them take me, please. Not now. Ethan's heart raced. He stood frozen between fear and duty. He did not know who those men were. He did not know what danger they carried, but one thing was clear. This alien woman was in desperate danger, and somehow he was now part of it. Suspense end. As the footsteps grew louder and closer, Ethan realized he had only seconds to decide. Would he walk away? Or would he protect the poor alien woman who had begged him for the impossible? The sound of boots echoed closer, heavy and sharp against the metal floor. Ethan's heart pounded as he pulled Lyra into the shadows of a broken doorway. She pressed close, her breath quick and shallow, her glowing eyes filled with terror. The voices of the soldiers grew louder, speaking in a harsh alien tongue. They carried weapons, and their armor clinked with each step. Whoever they were searching for her. Ethan held his breath. He had been in dangerous situations before, but this was different. This time he was protecting someone he barely knew. The poor alien woman clung to him as if he was her last chance, and maybe, just maybe, she was right. The soldiers passed the corridor without stopping. Their footsteps faded into the distance. For a moment silence returned, but Lyra's trembling body reminded Ethan that the danger was not over. He turned to her, whispering sharply, "Who are they? Why are they after you?" Lyra lifted her head slowly. Her face was pale and her silver hair clung to her damp cheeks. "They are hunters," she whispered, her voice weak. "They belong to a rival race. They want me dead. If I live, if I bear a child, it will mean the survival of my people, and they do not want that." Her words struck Ethan like a knife. He stepped back, staring at her with disbelief. "Wait, are you saying an entire species depends on you?" Lyra nodded, her hands clutching at her chest as if holding her heart together. "Yes, Ethan. My people are dying. Every cycle, fewer children are born. Our blood has grown thin, our bodies weak. The healers tried everything, but nothing worked. We learned only one truth. Our hope lies in the strength of humans." Ethan shook his head, trying to make sense of her words. "You can't be serious. You want me to believe that a human child could save an alien race?" Her glowing eyes met his, fierce and unblinking. "Yes," she said. "It is the only way. Our blood and human blood together could create life strong enough to survive. If I carry such a child, my people can live again." Ethan's throat went dry. The weight of her words pressed down on him like a mountain. This was not just about her. It was about an entire race. But how could he accept something so strange, so impossible? He wanted to walk away, to leave this madness behind. Yet the scars on her arms told him this was no lie. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Those scars, who did that to you?" Lyra's body stiffened, and she looked away. Her voice cracked when she answered, "My captors. They tried to force me. They tried to break me. But I escaped before they could finish. They knew what I carried, the last chance of my people. So they tortured me, hoping I would give up hope." Tears slid down her pale cheeks, but I did not. I cannot. Not when so many lives depend on me. Ethan's chest tightened with anger. He had seen cruelty before, but something about this felt even more twisted. She wasn't just a victim, she was a target of hatred, because she dared to carry hope in a dying world. He reached out without thinking and touched her shoulder gently. "You don't have to go through this alone anymore," he said softly. Her eyes widened at his words, shimmering with a mixture of shock and fragile hope. "No one has ever said that to me before," she whispered. "They all looked away or turned me in. But you are different." Before Ethan could respond, a loud crash echoed through the station, metal doors slamming open, soldiers shouting orders. They were sweeping the halls again, closer this time. Lyra flinched and grabbed his hand. "Please, Ethan, don't leave me," she pleaded. "They will take me, they will kill me, and with me, the last hope of my people will die." Ethan felt torn in two. On one side was his old life, safe, simple and far from this madness. On the other side was this fragile woman begging for his help, and behind her stood the lives of an entire species. He had not asked for this, but fate had placed it in his hands. "Why me?" he asked again. His voice was not angry this time, but heavy, almost broken. Lyra squeezed his hand tightly. "Because you are human," she said. "And because you have a heart. I saw it in your eyes the moment you found me. You are the one who can give my people a future. If you walk away, there will be no tomorrow for us." The hallway lights flickered. The sound of armored boots thundered closer and closer. Ethan knew they had seconds before the soldiers reached them. He stared at Lyra, this broken, desperate alien woman, and for the first time he realized that her pain was real, her fear was real, and her hope rested completely on him. His chest burned with a storm of emotions: fear, doubt, anger, compassion, but above all, a question he could not escape. Could he turn away and let her die? Suspense end. As the soldiers' voices grew louder, Ethan tightened his grip on her trembling hand. But deep inside, one thought screamed louder than the rest. If he chose to stand with her, his life would never be the same again. The station lights flickered again, sending a shiver through the hallway. Ethan pulled Lyra deeper into the shadows as the sound of soldiers echoed closer. His breath came heavy, his mind racing. How had his life turned from quiet trading into this nightmare? And yet, looking at Lyra's terrified face, he knew this was no dream. It was real, and the choice before him was real too. He whispered sharply, "We can't stay here. They'll find us." Lyra nodded weakly, still gripping his hand as if it was the only thing keeping her alive. But Ethan hesitated, his thoughts pulling in two directions. One voice inside him said, "Run. Leave her. Save yourself before it's too late." The other voice whispered, "If you leave her, she will die. And with her, an entire people will vanish." He closed his eyes for a moment. Images flashed through his mind. Her scars, her tears, her voice breaking as she begged him for help. No one deserved to suffer like that. But could he really take on the burden she asked of him? A child, a savior. He was just a man with a ship, not a hero. And yet, fate had put him here. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling, "if you walk away now, they will take me. If they take me, I will never be free, and the last chance for my people will die with me." Her words cut through his doubt like a blade. She wasn't just asking for herself. She was asking for all the lives connected to her. The sound of boots grew louder, closer. Ethan cursed under his breath and pulled her quickly toward a maintenance hatch. He forced it open, the metal groaning. "Get in," he ordered. Lyra crawled. Inside first, her small frame moving quickly through the narrow tunnel. Ethan followed, pulling the hatch closed just as the soldiers turned the corner. They moved in silence through the cramped passage. The air was stale and filled with the smell of rust and old oil. Ethan's knees scraped against the metal floor as he crawled. Every sound felt too loud. Every breath felt like it would give them away. Finally, they reached a dark service room at the end of the tunnel. It was filled with broken machines, crates, and dust. For now, they were safe. Lyra leaned against the wall, clutching her chest. Her breathing was shallow, her body trembling. "You should have left me," she whispered. "They will come again. They will never stop. You are in danger because of me." Ethan stared at her, his chest burning with frustration. "Then tell me the truth," he demanded. "No more half answers. Why you? Why do they want you dead so badly?" Her glowing eyes lifted to his, filled with pain. "Because I carry the seed of hope," she said softly. "My body is the last that can join with human blood. If I succeed, a new generation will by, strong, unbroken, able to survive, but if I fail, if I die, my people will fade into dust." Ethan swallowed hard. Her words were heavy, almost too much for one person to carry. He thought of her scars, the hunters, her desperate plea. It all began to make sense. They feared her because she could bring rebirth. She wasn't just a woman. She was a threat to those who wanted her kind gone forever. But why me? Ethan asked again, his voice low. There are billions of humans out there. Why not someone else? Lyra's lips trembled as she answered. Because I saw you, Ethan. I saw how you gave food to a starving child without asking for anything. In return, I saw the way you look at others. Not as tools, not as prey, but as lives that matter. I chose you because you have a heart strong enough to carry this weight. Ethan looked away, his fists clenching. Her words stirred something, deep inside him, something he didn't want to admit. He was no hero, no savior, and yet, wasn't it true? He could have ignored her voice in the hallway, but he didn't. He could have left her behind already, but he hadn't. Every step he had taken so far was proof that he couldn't walk away. Lyra reached out with her trembling hand and touched his arm gently. Ethan, please, she whispered. Do not turn from me now. You are the only one who can stand with me. The silence stretched heavy in the service room. Ethan's heart thundered. He knew the choice was before him, and once made, there would be no turning back. If he chose her, he chose a war he didn't understand. If he left her, she would be hunted, tortured, and killed. Either way, his life would never be the same again. Suddenly, the station's alarms blared loudly, red lights flashing across the walls. A robotic voice announced, Warning! Unauthorized landing detected. Security breach in progress. Ethan cursed. The soldiers were not just searching the halls anymore. Reinforcements had arrived. They would tear the station apart to find her. Lyra's eyes widened in fear, her fragile body trembling. They are here for me, she whispered. They will not stop until I am gone. Ethan clenched his jaw. He knew now there was no middle path. He could either abandon her and return to his quiet life, or he could take her hand, stand with her, and face the storm that was coming. Suspense end. As the alarm screamed through the station and the sound of enemy ships docking echoed in the distance, Ethan looked at Lyra's pleading eyes and realized the truth. The time for running was over. Now he had to choose. Walk away forever, or fight for the woman who carried the last hope of her people. The station shook as the enemy ship locked onto the docking bay. Warning lights flashed red across the walls and the alarm screamed through every corridor. Ethan pulled Lyra to her feet, her weak body stumbling against him. They're here, he muttered, his jaw tight. They're not just searching anymore, they're coming to take you. Lyra clutched his sleeve, her glowing eyes filled with fear. They will kill anyone who stands in their way. Ethan, if they capture me, it is the end. Her voice cracked as she whispered, We must escape before they close the station. Ethan's mind raced. He had an old ship docked at the far side of the station. It wasn't much. It had seen better days, but it was fast enough to flee. Still, reaching it meant crossing half the station, and already the hunters were spreading out, their armored boots echoing like drums of war. He peered out through the cracked door of the service. Room shadows moved in the distance, dark armored figures, weapons glowing faintly. They spoke in a sharp alien tongue, their voices cold and merciless. Ethan's stomach tightened. He had fought before, but these were soldiers trained for killing, and he had no weapon but his courage. He turned back. To Lyra. Can you walk? He asked. Her face was pale, her steps shaky, but she nodded. I can, if you help me. Ethan slid his arm around her shoulders, supporting her. Her body felt light, fragile, as if she could break with a single wrong step. Yet there was strength in her eyes, a will that refused to die. Together, they slipped into the hallway, moving as quietly as shadows. Every corner they turned felt like a trap waiting to spring. The station was no longer a safe place. It was a cage tightening around them. At one junction, Ethan froze, pulling Lyra back against the wall. Two soldiers marched past, their eyes scanning, weapons ready. He held his breath until they disappeared. Around the bend, Lyra's trembling hand gripped his arm tighter. Step by step, they moved closer to the docking bay. But then a sharp metallic voice echoed through the speakers. All citizens remain where you are. A dangerous fugitive has been sighted. Anyone caught helping her will be executed. Lyra's face turned pale. They will kill you too, Ethan, she whispered. You should leave me. Save yourself. Ethan shook his head. Not a chance, he said, his voice low but firm. I'm not the kind of man who abandons someone to die. For a moment, her eyes softened, shimmering with something more than fear, something like hope. Suddenly, a door burst open ahead, and 3 soldiers stormed out, their weapons lifted the instant they saw them. Run, Ethan shouted, pulling Lyra behind him. Blasts of energy shot past, striking the walls with sizzling sparks. The hallway lit up with deadly light. Ethan ducked low, dragging Lyra around the corner just as another blast scorched the floor where she had stood. They sprinted through narrow passages, Ethan's heart hammering. He knew they couldn't outrun them forever. He needed a way to fight back. In a supply closet, he forced the door open and yanked Lyra inside. The soldiers' shouts echoed nearby, closing in. Ethan searched the shelves desperately, his hands brushing over broken tools and spare parts. Then his fingers closed around something heavy. An old plasma cutter. Not a soldier's weapon, but strong enough to burn through metal or armor. He gripped it tight and turned to Lyra. Stay behind me, he whispered. She nodded, though her body trembled. The door creaked and the sound of armored boots grew louder. Ethan's breath slowed, his muscles tense like a coiled spring. The first soldier stepped into view, weapon raised. Ethan fired, the plasma cutter blazing with white-hot light. The blast struck the soldier's chest, sending him crashing backward with a scream. The others shouted in anger, firing wildly. Ethan pulled Lyra down behind the crates as sparks rained around them. The air filled with smoke, the smell of burning. Metal stinging his nose, he fired again, the cutter's beam slicing through the darkness. One soldier fell, armor melting under the heat. The last one cursed in his alien tongue and fled down the hall, calling for reinforcements. Ethan pulled Lyra to her feet, his chest heaving. Her wide eyes stared at him with shock and something more, admiration. You risked your life for me, she whispered. You didn't have to fight them, but you did. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow. Get used to it, he muttered, though deep inside, he knew he had crossed a line. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was fighting. For her. They moved quickly, the sound of alarms still blaring. Finally, the docking bay came into view. Through the wide window, Ethan saw his old ship sitting in the corner, rusty, patched, but waiting. Hope surged in his chest. If they could just reach it, maybe they had a chance, but then his hope froze. Enemy soldiers were already inside the bay, a full squad, armored and armed, their weapons gleaming under the harsh lights. They stood between Ethan's ship and freedom, and they were waiting. Lyra's hand slipped into his, her fingers cold but steady. Her voice was barely a whisper. We are trapped, Ethan. They know where we're going. Ethan's grip tightened, his eyes fixed on the impossible wall of soldiers blocking their way. His mind raced, fight, run, or surrender. But he knew one thing for certain. The hunt had begun, and it would not end until one of them fell. Suspense end. As the squad raised their weapons and the docking bay lights turned blood red, Ethan stepped forward, the plasma cutter glowing in his hand. Behind him, Lyra whispered, They will not stop until I am gone. And in that moment, Ethan realized this fight was no longer about escape. It was about survival. The docking bay shook with tension, red lights flashing across the metal walls. A squad of armored soldiers blocked the only path to Ethan's old ship. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy, aimed straight at him and Lyra. The air felt heavy, charged with the promise of violence. Ethan gripped the plasma cutter tightly, sweat dripping down his face. It wasn't a soldier's weapon, but it was all he had behind him. Lyra stood weak but steady, her glowing eyes fixed on the enemy. They will not stop, she whispered, her voice trembling. They would rather destroy the station than let me leave alive. Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at his ship, freedom just a few steps away. But those steps were guarded. By death itself, his mind raced, calculating, searching for a way through. Running meant being shot down. Surrendering meant losing her. That left only one option. Fight. The soldiers advanced, their leader raising his hand in command, A sharp voice rang out in their alien tongue. Then, as one, they fired. Blasts of energy scorched the air. Ethan dove behind a stack of crates, pulling Lyra with him. The floor shook as beams tore holes through metal and sparks rained down. The smell of burning steel filled the docking bay. Ethan fired back, the plasma cutter spitting. White-hot light. One soldier fell, armor melting as the beam tore into his chest. But the others moved quickly, their formation unbroken. They were trained, disciplined, relentless. Ethan knew they could not win a direct fight. Stay down, he shouted, shielding Lyra with his body. Her trembling hand touched his arm. You can't fight them all, Ethan, she whispered. There must be another way. Ethan's eyes darted around the bay. Then he saw it. The overhead lights, powered by exposed conduits running along the ceiling. If he could hit them, the entire bay would plunge into darkness. It was risky, but maybe their only chance. He aimed the cutter upward and fired. The beam struck the conduits, sparks exploding in a shower of light. Suddenly, the bay went black, the emergency lights too damaged to activate. The soldiers cursed, their glowing weapons slicing the dark like knives. But now shadows were Ethan's ally. Stay close, he whispered, pulling Lyra against him. They moved low, crawling through the smoke and darkness. Every step felt endless, every breath heavy with fear. The sound of boots echoed, weapons fired blindly. One beam struck inches from Ethan's head, scorching the wall, but he kept moving, guiding Lyra toward the faint outline of his ship. The closer they got, the louder his heart pounded. The soldiers shouted, regrouping their armor, clanking as they spread out. One of them passed dangerously close. Ethan froze, holding his breath. Lyra pressed against him, her small frame shaking. The soldier's weapon hummed inches away. Then, after a tense second, he moved on. Ethan let out a slow breath and pushed forward. At last they reached the ship's ramp. He hit the control panel, and the old metal door groaned open. Inside, he urged, pulling Lyra in. She stumbled but obeyed, collapsing into the narrow corridor of the ship. Ethan jumped into the pilot's seat, his hands flying across the controls. The ship's engines coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. The vibration shook the floor, filling the air with a low thunder. But the soldiers had heard. Shouts echoed in the bay, footsteps pounding closer. Blasts struck the hull, shaking the ship violently. Warning lights blinked across the console. Ethan gritted his teeth, pulling on the controls. Come on, old girl, don't fail me now, he muttered to the ship. The engines screamed, fighting against years of wear and rust. But slowly the ship lifted, hovering off the ground. Lyra staggered to the cockpit, clutching the wall for support. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. They are closing the bay doors, she cried, pointing at the massive steel shield sliding down from the ceiling. Ethan cursed. If those doors sealed, they'd be trapped like prey in a cage. He pushed the engines harder, the ship rattling dangerously. The ramp barely cleared the ground when the first soldier leapt forward, firing at the cockpit window. The glass cracked, glowing with heat. Ethan swerved, the blast missing his head by inches. He fired the thrusters, and the ship shot forward, racing toward the narrowing gap. The bay doors groaned as they closed, the space shrinking smaller. The soldiers fired wildly, beams chasing the fleeing ship. Ethan clenched his jaw, sweat pouring down his face. Hold on, he shouted. The ship roared, engines screaming. With a final surge, it blasted through the shrinking gap just as the doors slammed shut behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Only the stars stretched before them, endless and cold. But behind them, the enemy cruisers waited, their black shapes rising from the void. Dozens of them, engines burning like red eyes. Lyra gasped, her voice barely more than a whisper. They followed us. We cannot escape them. Ethan gripped the controls, staring at the deadly fleet blocking their path. He knew she was right. They had escaped the station. But now, the real chase was about to begin. Suspense. End. As the enemy cruisers spread out, surrounding them in the cold darkness of space, Ethan's old ship trembled under his hands, and he realized with a cold certainty, their fight for survival had only just begun. The stars stretched cold and endless outside the cockpit window. But Ethan did not see peace in them, only danger. Dozens of enemy cruisers surrounded his old ship, their red engines glowing like hungry eyes in the dark. The hunters had not given up, if anything. Their trap was now closing tighter. The console flickered with warning lights. The ship rattled with every sudden turn. Ethan's knuckles turned white on the controls. "She's not built for this kind of chase," he muttered. "She'll fall. Apart before we outrun them?" Lyra stood beside him, one hand on the seat to steady herself. Her glowing eyes reflected the starlight, full of fear, yet also unbroken will. "They will not stop, Ethan," she whispered. "They will follow us across the stars. They fear what I carry, they fear what I could give. To them, I am not a woman, I am a threat to erase." Her words cut through him. He looked at her fragile frame, her trembling hands, her scars. She did not look like a threat. She looked like someone who had carried too much pain for too long. And yet she was right. The hunters wanted her gone, not because of what she was, but because of what she could become. A sudden blast rocked the ship, shaking them violently. Alarms screamed, red lights flashing across the cockpit. "They've locked weapons," Ethan growled, pulling hard on the controls. The ship rolled, barely dodging the beam of energy that cut past them. The blast lit up the void like lightning. One hit and their old hull would crumble. Lyra clutched his shoulder, her voice urgent. "You cannot outgun them, Ethan. If you fight them, we will die." "I know," he said, his jaw tight, "but I'm not planning to fight them head-on." He slammed a lever forward, and the ship dove suddenly, engines screaming in protest. The enemy cruisers followed, firing again, their beams slicing past like blades of fire. The old ship shuddered, but it held together. For now, in the silence between attacks, Lyra's voice trembled. "When I was a child, my people told stories. Stories of humans, strong, stubborn, full of heart. We believed if anyone could stand beside us, it would be your kind." Her glowing eyes softened as she looked at him. "Now, here you are, risking everything for me." Ethan didn't answer right away. He kept his eyes on the stars, searching for a path. But her words sank into him like fire. He had told himself he was only helping because he couldn't let her die. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. Something about her stirred something in him. Something protective. Something fierce. He wasn't just fighting to save her. He was fighting because he wanted to. The ship shook again as another blast grazed the hull. Panels sparked and the lights flickered dangerously. "We can't take much more of this," Ethan shouted. "Then we must find cover," Lyra said, her voice steady despite her fear. Her finger pointed to the star map glowing on the console. "There, the shadow belt." Ethan's eyes followed. It was a region of dense asteroids and drifting debris, dangerous to navigate, but it could also hide them from scanners. "Perfect," he muttered, pulling the ship toward it. The hunters followed, beams flashing like spears in the dark. The asteroid field loomed larger, jagged rocks spinning silently in the void. The moment they entered, the chase grew chaotic. Beams of energy struck the asteroids, exploding them into fragments. The hunters struggled to maneuver, their large cruisers clumsy among the sharp rocks. Ethan weaved through narrow gaps, the old ship scraping against stone. The sound of tearing metal filled the cabin. But they slipped deeper into the shadows. Lyra clutched the console, her body swaying with every sudden turn. Her voice was quiet but strong. "You risk everything for me, Ethan." "Why? You could have left me on the station, you could have run far away." Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't want to answer at first, but the truth burned too hot to keep inside. "Because I couldn't," he said, his voice low. "I couldn't. Look into your eyes and walk away. I couldn't let them take you. Maybe I don't understand all of this. Maybe I don't know if we can survive, but I know this. I won't abandon you." Lyra's lips parted, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. For a moment she forgot her pain, forgot her fear. She simply looked at him, as if seeing something she had lost long ago. "Trust. You are not just saving me," she whispered. "You are saving the last hope of my people." Before Ethan could respond, the ship jolted violently. A tractor beam had locked onto them. The console blared warnings, sparks flying from the panels. The ship groaned as it was dragged backward. Through the cockpit window, the enemy cruiser loomed, its red lights glowing like the eyes of a beast pulling its prey closer. Ethan pulled at the controls, but nothing worked. The beam was too strong. Lyra's face turned pale, her voice breaking. "No, if they take me now, it's over." Her trembling hand reached for his, her glowing eyes filled with desperation. "Ethan, please, do not let them take me." Suspense. End. As the cruiser dragged them closer, its weapons primed for the kill, Ethan stared at Lyra's pleading eyes and realized the truth. He had only one chance left, either find a way to break free or lose everything. The ship shook as the tractor beam dragged it toward the massive enemy cruiser, the sound of tearing. Metal echoed through the cabin and sparks flew from the console. Ethan pulled at the controls, but the old ship groaned helplessly, locked in the grip of the beam. On the other side of the window, the enemy vessel loomed like a monster of steel. Its cannons glowed, ready to fire the moment they were captured. Lyra's body trembled, her glowing eyes filled with terror. "They have me, Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They will take me, and when they do, it is the end. My people will die with me." Her hand reached for his, cold and shaking. "Please, do not let them win. Do not let the last hope of my people vanish." Ethan's heart thundered. He had fought hard to reach this point. He had carried her through darkness, fire, and fear. But now it seemed all of it would end here, trapped in the jaws of an enemy too strong to fight. His mind raced. He could surrender. He could let them take her and return to his old life. But he knew the truth. He would never forgive himself. And more than that, he would lose something he didn't even know he needed until he met her. His eyes hardened. "No," he growled, gripping the controls tighter. "They are not taking you." The ship's systems screamed with failure warnings, but Ethan ignored them. He slammed every switch forward, forcing the engines to roar. The old vessel strained, metal groaning, but the tractor beam held firm. The cruiser dragged them closer, closer, like prey to the slaughter. Ethan's teeth clenched as an idea sparked in his mind. The asteroid field. They were still close to the drifting rocks, spinning like silent giants in the void. If he timed it right, he could use them. But one mistake meant death. He turned to Lyra, his voice steady even though his chest burned with fear. "I need you to trust me, no matter what happens." Her glowing eyes met his, wide with fear but filled with faith. "I already do," she whispered, her voice shaking but certain. Ethan pulled hard on the controls, angling the ship toward a massive asteroid drifting nearby. The cruiser's tractor beam dragged them closer and closer to its glowing red hull. But Ethan forced the engines to fight, pulling against the beam. Sparks exploded from the panels. Smoke filled the cabin. The ship screamed as if it would break. "Apart, come on," Ethan muttered through gritted teeth. Just a little closer. The asteroid loomed large, spinning slowly. The cruiser, focused on dragging them in, didn't see the danger until it was too late. At the last second, Ethan cut the engines and rolled the ship hard. The sudden move broke the tractor beams. Holden, the enemy cruiser, was too close to stop itself. With a deafening crash, the massive warship slammed into the asteroid. The explosion lit up the void like a second sun, flames and debris scattered in every direction. The shockwave rocked Ethan's ship violently, nearly throwing them off course. Ethan held the controls steady, guiding the ship through the storm of fire and metal. The old vessel shook, warning alarms blaring, but somehow it held together. When the smoke cleared, only silence filled the stars. The cruiser was gone, torn apart by the very rock it had tried to use as a cage. Lyra gasped, her glowing eyes wide with awe and disbelief. You destroyed them," she whispered. "You turned their own trap against them." Ethan leaned back in the pilot's seat, his chest heaving. He was exhausted, drenched in sweat, but a small, tired smile touched his lips. "Yeah," he muttered, "but don't thank me yet. There will be more, they'll come again, maybe stronger." Lyra sank into the seat beside him, her trembling hand finding his. Her voice was soft, filled with gratitude. "Then I will face them with you, Ethan. I am not alone anymore. You have given me more than survival, you have given me hope." For a moment the cockpit was silent, just the hum of the damaged engines and the endless stars outside. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. The fragile woman who had once begged for his help was no longer just a stranger. She was his responsibility, his partner in survival. And maybe something even more. He squeezed her hand gently, his voice low but firm. "Then we'll face whatever comes together." Her eyes glowed brighter, shimmering with something new. Trust. Maybe even love. She leaned closer, whispering, "Together, we will build a future. Together, we will bring life where there was only death." Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't know what the future held. War, danger, sacrifice. But he knew one thing. He had made his choice, and he would not turn back. Final suspense end. As their damaged ship drifted into the endless night, Ethan and Lyra stared into the stars, hand in hand. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, for in that fragile bond between human and alien, a new hope had been born, and it would shake the stars themselves.